I did to my neighbor what they did to others.
To start, I bought a house with the intention of doing a flip. When I moved in, the self-appointed block captain let me know who they were the first day. Sadly, they were my next-door neighbors. I tried to be friendly, but listening to them I realized how horrible they were and tried to keep still, be civil. My significant other kept saying, "Just wait for it to be our turn." They bragged about, though, their contacts with the city, forcing people to make improvements on their houses, getting undesirable renters out of the houses, and just harassing people in general. As I worked on flipping my house, the wife became a worse thorn in my side. To start, she demanded I put up a fence so people would quit cutting through my yard and scaring her. Then, her and the husband demanded I take care of the weeds in the yard or they will do it and bill me. After that, a storm, a tree scraped their shingles and they asked for $1,200 to replace them. The tree was there before I moved in, and by code they are irresponsible to cut back the branches to the property line. When I wouldn't pay, they had a relative jump my fence and cut the trees down. Needless to say, I began to ignore to them, so she became a constant gnat and moved on to another target. Then one day, as I was tearing down my deck for a patio, I realized she put a feral cat colony on a section of my property. I had wondered why all the stray cats were around, and I finally found out. I reached out to the city and demanded it be removed, but they said she followed the law on getting it in place. As I tried to get it shut down, she began unhinged behavior, from standing in her windows staring at me, yelling out the window at me, to hitting the fence with items to scare my dog. Here my revenge started. I started by filing a HRO, harassment restraining order, against the wife and had it granted ex parte with the evidence I provided, or course she contested, as it was defamatory to her character. Before the hearing, the husband tried to physically intimidate me, so I filed one against him and it was also granted ex parte. In the hearing it came up that there was an HRO against the husband as well. They dogged being served until I had it published as a means of service. I started to make complaints about them and their house. Also, I made police calls when necessary. As I did this, the other neighbors began to realize they could do to them what they had done to them and others. For example, as I was having my front door replaced, needing a building work permit. I knew they were doing internal remodeling, so I called a city inspector and they were fined for not having permit. As she ranted at the inspector, he looked at my window and saw I had mine displayed. Their back porch became hoarded, so I made another call to a city inspector and they had to clear it out. Then they had a broken window on the porch door, so I called an inspector and they had to replace the door. Next, the paint on their house was peeling, so I called an inspector and they had to repaint. The inspector also found the wood underneath was rotted along with their front porch was sloping. So, they needed to fix the front porch, sections of wood, and repaint. Through all this they had up cameras to prove they were not doing the things I said, i.e. hitting the fence. They also pointed a camera at my backyard. As it was legal to point a camera into my yard and a part of my HRO was her intrusive watching behaviors, I gave the camera the middle finger on my way to and from my garage. When she complained, with the city tiring of her, their response was she was admitting to intrusively watching me. The fight over the cat colony came to an end when I realized one of the cats had a serious disease and I began to capture them and turn them into animal control. Don't worry, animal control was part of the feral cat program, so they would not be put down, but the neighbor would have to pay a fine to get each cat out or have the colony closed. Finally, I caught the sick one and it had rabies. Part of the program was for her to capture each new cat, have it vaccinated. Something she admitted to willing not doing on her GoFundMe for the colony. I soon had the GoFundMe shut down when I provided the evidence she was not using the funds as she stated they were going to be used. The city now had to act to close the colony. The person at Animal Control who wouldn't respond to my complaints was fired. The neighbors called in a city mediator who we met with, presented all the evidence and said we would not meet with them, and provided extremely racist tweets they made about neighbors. The city cut ties with them as community leaders. With their power to bully gone and having spent what I can only imagine in fines and repairs, like they did to numerous other neighbors. After 14 years they sold their house and moved out, way out to the suburbs where they only have one neighbor about 50 yards away. They knew I was wrapping up my flippin'. D would be out in less than a year. Without being able to bully their neighbors, with people having their back, they seem to have no further reason to stay. Needless to say, I did several more things to wear them down. Finally, when I listed my house, it was sold while theirs was still on the market. As a final FU to them, I reported to the county they had both the new and old house listed as their homestead, meaning they were paying less in property taxes, so they got hit in with more fines on my way out.
Neighbor likes to park in front of my house? Okay then.
This happened a few years ago. My neighbor started parking on the street behind my car, like literally inches, for no apparent reason. My neighbor has a driveway empty and also lived 2 houses down the street. I don't have a driveway, so on-street parking is a must for me. So, after a few weeks, I asked if it was necessary to park so close when there was literally no cars on the street for over a 1/4 mile. He said, no, but there's no law against it, with a big beep-eating grin on his face. A few weeks pass by, and my car gets hit because someone thought there was enough room to clear as his truck blocked the view of my car entirely. I see this happen, but unfortunately can't get a model or license plate number. I find my neighbor's email address because I really didn't feel like talking to him, and asked him again if he could just park further down the road, closer to his house. He replied, nope. Suck on it, okay. I had lived here for quite a long time, and never had any issues with him or any other neighbor. I keep to myself, never make noise, don't have any noisy pets or parties, etc. His truck has his business name on it. Google it. Find out it's his own business. Lots of Yelp reviews, BBB rating, etc. All these links point to his website. I go to check his website, it doesn't load up. I head over to Hoy's and see that the domain isn't registered. I snag it. Before I think of what to do with it, I Google the owner's name and find out he's been convicted of murdering a child 20-ish years ago. I find a handful of links that details his story rather explicitly. I copy-paste all those links into an email to him, a throwaway account so he can't just reply to me as I deleted it afterward. Said something like, well, if you want to be a jerk for no reason, I just bought your business domain. Here's all the links I plan on posting on it. I don't have to list your business name because all of your business listings across the internet have this URL pointing to it. K.E.P. Parking like a jerk. Yes, it's legal, but you are willfully doing this just to annoy me. I legally bought your domain, and can legally link these articles. Park behind me again, and I'll launch it. Within an hour his truck was moved into his driveway. He asked me for the domain, and I told him, when either you move, or I move, I'll hand it over. Until then it'll remain offline. And #X200B, edit, only thing fake was the time frame. This happened last week, not a few years ago. He was originally charged with capital murder, but his lawyer convinced him of a plea deal for manslaughter because they have way more than enough to convict you of capital murder. Edit 2, for those saying this is fake, I'm putting my house on the market in 2 to 3 months. When it sells, I'll come back and post all the news articles as I won't be anywhere near here, so doxing will be much more difficult.
Fired from last job, but I got the last laugh.
Pardon the format. I am on mobile. I worked at a retail chain that sold pet supplies and products. When I started working there it was great, family owned, and everyone I worked with was fantastic. The owners eventually wanted to retire and sold the small chain to an investment group. Once the investment group took over, almost all but a few employees were let go, forced out, or just quit. I hung on for a little while longer before I got promoted at my other job. New company brings in new manager to my store. My store was the top performing store in the entire chain, bringing in about $10,000 minus $12,000 per days on average. It was always more on weekends and especially around the holidays. The new manager is a Mr. Company man. Company told him they only want employees around for 2 to 3 years. Myself and 2 others had been there 10+ years. So naturally he began ruffling feathers and giving us all a hard time. Unfortunately he decided on me first. Mr. Company Man found out I work 2 jobs. The 2 jobs are not in related fields, so there was no chance of any conflicts of interest on my end. However, my second job requires me to work nights and weekends. When Mr. Company Man found this out, he demanded I work nights, weekends there. So it was fair for everyone. I didn't work nights and weekends there because I was that store's only OSHA certified forklift operator, and deliveries didn't come at night, they came weekday mornings, every day. Mr. Company Man didn't want to hear that, and told me I either had to work nights and weekends, or that day would be my last day. I told him, don't threaten me with a good time. I suppose today is my last day then. I was pretty pissed about that, but it's not a big deal now, ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I went home early, didn't finish my shift, because beepem. But when I got home I decided to call my local OSHA inspector and report them for not having a certified operator on staff, as well as numerous other hazards. Nay, DLESS to say, they lost close to 3 weeks' profit from all the violations the inspector found. I was surprised they even showed up. In my state, the inspector will call you back after an inspection and tell you if your claims were founded or not. Mine were. And Mr. Company Man got his ass chewed out so bad he ended up quitting. TLDR job fires only OSHA certified forklift operator. I call OSHA and report it. Company is fined up the arse. New manager quits. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect his to really get any attention. Thanks all for the awards. To add a bit more, after I was fired it really motivated me to get my behind in gear and get back in school. Working as a stationary engineer now. Thanks everyone. Edit 2. Wow, this really blew up. I am editing again to make a few clarifications. My state does not have a forklift license, it's really called a powerlift operator's license. The license needs to be renewed every 4 years. There are 7 classes of powerlift here. I was certified in 1 THR 06, class 7 being any lift equipped with pneumatic tires, which I would never have needed to use, because ours was a class 5. There is no federal regulation, standard or language that requires certification to my best knowledge, but my AHJ's authority having jurisdiction, are allowed to make regulations and standards that are more stringent than federal ones. These standards and regulations are typically enforced by my local Department of Labor office or OSHA office. Thanks all.
I was fired and made the company lose over £100,000.
So I used to work at a family-run builders merchants and was a trade sales advisor. I was fired for bringing up health and safety concerns in an email sent to a manager and for the fact I was apparently unhappy in my role. I did nothing wrong, but they still sacked me. Now when I worked there I had clients that I had built good relationships with and even become friends with some of them. They would get me beers and whiskey at Christmas or have BBQs and so on outside of work. Anyway, back to the revenge. I was fired, which in my opinion was unfair, and it was during this COVID-19 pandemic. I had worked the entire way through it until I was fired. So I wanted revenge. I contacted multiple clients, friends, and most of them say okay, we won't use that company if they treat the staff the way they did to me. One client easily spends over £100,000 a year easily in the top 3 customers they had. He used them because I would get him the best prices, etc., etc. As soon as I'm fired I call him and let him know what happened, and he straight away promises not to use them again. So big middle finger to the owners of that ******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* employees better or go under. Slight update, just reading comments. I did contact ACAS, they are investigating. Health and safety executives did visit and told them to put a few things right but nothing else. I did have video and photo evidence of one accident actually happening and many other issues. I don't have a copy of the email but ACAS can find it on their internal mail system as it never truly disappears. Also any clients I contacted were friends I didn't contact, a huge list of clients, just a handful, letting them know I no longer worked for the company. They ask why I got fired and I gave them an honest answer. I did not ask them to stop using them, as at the end of the day if they offer the best prices they would still use them, but that's not the case.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.